Oh boy, a new Breath of the Wild announcement. Are we finally getting a title, a plot, a release date?
2022年に発売を予定しているとお伝えしていましたが、開発にもう少しお時間をいただきたく、発売を2023年春に変更させていただきたいと思います。
Oh. Well, how am I supposed to satiate my ever-growing Zelda withdrawal now? Alright, I can work with this. Skyward Sword, as most longtime Zelda fans know, is a game that is best remembered by its divisiveness. Division over the motion controls, or the art style. Whether it's pronounced Fi or Fi. It's Fi, by the way, just objectively that's how you pronounce it, you know. But I digress. I've been a huge Zelda fan all my life, and yet I've never finished this one. Not because I wasn't enjoying the game, just I used to have this bad habit of taking weeks to get back to a game, and then when I get back to it, I'm like, well, I didn't get very far and I don't remember what I was doing, so I might as well just reset, rinse and repeat for the next 5 years of my life until Nintendo suddenly makes a remaster. Although, come to think of it, I remember getting pretty far into the game last time, but I just can't seem to remember why. Well, I guess that doesn't matter right now. What does matter is that I can now play the full game in 1080p 60 FPS for only $60. Come on, Nintendo! Anyway, this is my journey to reach the end of Skyward Sword for the first time. Today, I will finally finish The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Like most Zelda games, we start with Link waking up from a strange dream. Zelda's Loftwing has a letter from her reminding him of his promise to meet with her before the Wing Ceremony, this special event where the students of Skyloft's Knight Academy compete for the right to be initiated as a knight. Zelda's worried that Link won't win because he's been slacking off in his training, so she does what any good friend would do to help. Pushes him off a cliff. Link tries to call his Loftwing, but it doesn't respond, so Zelda swoops in to save him. Obviously, Link can't participate in the Wing Ceremony without his bird, so before the race starts we have another race against the clock to find the Loftwing while the headmaster delays the ceremony. While asking around Skyloft, I run into Groose, Colin, and Stritch. Groose starts mocking Link for always spending so much time with Zelda when, speak of the devil, Zelda appears and tells him off. And his reaction is, well... Bet you didn't expect to see that in your Zelda game, huh? Back at the academy, Fledge reveals that Groose hid the Loftwing behind the waterfall cave, so I grab a sword from Aegis the Knight Commander and run through the cave to where it's hidden. Oh, also Zelda says something about the surface and hearing a voice calling her, I don't know, it's probably not important. With Link's Loftwing rescued, the Wing Ceremony can finally start. To win this race, I need to muster all of my skills and fly like I've never flown but hey, I won! That was fast. Having won the race, it was now time for the special ceremony Groose kept talking about. My reward for winning is the sailcloth, which does two things, exists and smells nice, apparently. Also, this scene establishes that Link actually does do this pose every time he gets an item, so make of that what you will. After getting almost killed by Zelda again, the two go flying around the clouds together, and Zelda says she has something important to talk about. I sure hope a giant tornado doesn't suddenly appear in the sky to ruin this moment. Yep, I sure hope a tornado. Link has another weird dream and wakes up to Headmaster Gepora, who is surprisingly calm for finding out his daughter might be dead. A mysterious blue figure calls out and I follow it to the goddess statue. This is Fi, a spirit inside the goddess sword whose purpose is to help the goddess's chosen hero by reminding him when his Wii remote, when the Joy-Con's battery is running low. She's also like a metal detector or something, I don't know. With the goddess sword in hand, it's time to finally descend to the surface and start searching for Zelda. After a quick shopping trip. I land in the sealed grounds where I hit this totally not important stone with a skyward strike and head through the nearby door to meet an old woman who's simply called the Old One, who points me in the direction of Farron Woods. I find this creature called a Kiwi getting attacked by bokoblins, so I take them out, and one tutorial later, I meet the Elder Kiwi. You ever notice how in these games the leader of a race was always the biggest? King Zora, Elder Kiwi, Kepora? Anyway, before I could proceed, I had to find all the missing Kiwis, so I do that without much trouble, and as a reward he gives me the slingshot. Kind of a tedious fetch quest, but hey, I can let it slide just this once. I masterfully disarm the temple's airtight security system, and finally make my way into Skyview Temple. There's not much to say about this dungeon, seeing as it's the first one and the most simple by design. It's really just here to introduce the player to navigating the dungeons, so almost every puzzle just involves finding a switch or two to open a door. There were a couple of these really interesting puzzles where you have to stand in the right spot and make these eyes spin with your sword. It's simple, but I just like that they found a way to bring the motion controls into the puzzles instead of just using it as a combat gimmick. In the second half of the temple, I get into the center room and have a surprisingly fun fight with a Stalfos, which grants me the Beetle, which allows me to send it flying to reach items and hidden switches in places I can't reach. It's also really slow, for now at least. I open up the boss door, stupid key, come on, get in the hole, why are you even shaped like this? And prepare myself for the first boss. Knowing Zelda, you normally expect the first boss to be something basic, like a spider with a giant eyeball weak spot. What Skyward Sword gives us is Girahim. Yeah, our first boss fight of the game is the main villain. This is also probably the most I've ever struggled with the first boss in one of these games. And it's not because of the motion controls, it's because I haven't mastered the motion controls. This fight shows you that this game won't be as easy as just wildly swinging the Wiimote around. This fight shows you that this game won't be as easy as just wildly swinging the Joy-Con around. You have to actually aim. You know, like a sword. And after all that, Girahim says he was just toying with you. What an introduction to the villain. 10 out of 10 boss, would fight again. On the other side of the last door, Fi does a dance and says to go to Eldin. But first I have to go back to the goddess statue to insert the new tablet to open up a new hole in the clouds. A little tedious, but this series has done a lot worse. Looking at you, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Eldin Volcano, the area that would one day become Death Mountain, most commonly known as the home of the Gorons. Those aren't Gorons. The heck's a magma? I work my way in and up the volcano and obtain the digging mitts, which let me dig. Yeah. This game's items are weird, man. I reach the temple doors and find out that in order to enter the dungeon, I need to find the key to the door, which has been broken into 5 pieces. I collect all the pieces, make note of the weird propeller next to one of them, and continue on. The Earth Temple's main gimmick is using this giant ball to travel over the lava while lowering the bridges blocking your progress. I like that you still have to use all of your previous items for the new puzzles. I feel like it's too common for Zelda games to have you use an item for one dungeon and then forget about it for the rest of the game except for side things. So it's refreshing to have to keep switching items depending on the puzzle. And speaking of items, the new item for this dungeon is, as it is in most fire dungeons, the bomb bag, which I obtained after a fight with these 2 Lizalfos. I'm getting the weirdest feeling of deja vu right now. I reach the boss door and thankfully have no problems with the key this time. On the other side, I meet Girahim yet again. He taunts me for a minute and leaves to follow Zelda, but not without leaving a parting gift. Oh, there's the eyeball boss. While it's not the coolest boss fight in a Zelda game, it is probably one of the most unique. Your movement is restricted to this long, thin platform, and it's a constant struggle to manage your stamina and your bomb count. If you miss too many throws, you'll have no choice but to run back up to the top to refill your bomb bag. Once again, no complaints about this boss. Does look kinda dumb though. I go through the next door into the spring and... It took me too long to get here? Well, excuse me, I got here as fast as I could. as fast as I could. I get the last stone tablet and Fi reveals the next objective on this quest, the Gate of Time located in Lanayru Desert. I open up the next hole and drop in. The flow of time is always cruel. Its speed seems different for each person, but no one can change it. A thing that does not change with time is a memory of younger days. Unless you have magic time travel rocks. The Lanayru Desert is home to an ancient mine filled with special stones called time shift stones, which, when struck, create areas of varying sizes wherein anything inside will revert to whatever state it was in thousands of years in the past, except Link for some reason. I soon learned that this desert once thrived with lush green fields and technology far more advanced than anything we've ever seen in these games before, and now it's nothing more than a barren, empty shell of the great civilization it once was, to be forgotten forever. Time passes, people move, like a river's flow, it never ends. A childish mind will turn to noble ambition, young love will turn to deep affection. Oh wait, I'm quoting Sheik again, aren't I? Once I'm out of the mine, I just need to wade through the sand using hidden pathways from the distant past so I can easily enter the third dungeon. Yeah, I should have seen that one coming. Now I can enter the third dungeon. The Lanayru mining facility brings in more puzzles involving the time shift stones. You have to keep switching back and forth between the past and the present to progress through each room. It's a fun gimmick and there are a lot of interesting enemies too. Hey wait, is that the balloon from Breath of the Wild? Anyway, the new dungeon item is the Gust Bellows, which you use to blow away dust and to keep your opponent from getting back to the ledge. Yep. After some more time puzzles and a quick break to marvel at how great the number 23 is, I make it to the boss room. In my experience, the sand dungeons tend to have some of the tougher bosses as far as Zelda games go, so I was prepared to hit this giant scorpion with everything I had. I beat it in about 2 minutes without getting hit. Well, never judge a boss by its cover, I guess. I find a way outside and, for once, catch Zelda before she leaves, but before Link can get any closer, Girahim crashes the party, and Impa steps in to fend him off. Zelda throws Link her harp and Link manages to get past Girahim's barrier just in time to save Impa. Impa takes Zelda through the gate after telling Link to go back to the sealed grounds. Girahim, angered by Link's interference, leaves with the promise of making the hero's death excruciating. Man, this guy is so violent. I flew back into the sky to drop back to the sealed grounds, but then something hit me. Groose noticed Link constantly running in and out of town and decided to follow him to find out what he's up to. So I guess he's just part of the story now. Cool. Inside, Groose is talking to the old one and storms off after finding out that Link is the chosen hero. Then she teaches me how to play the harp. The ground suddenly starts shaking and I go outside to find that the same monster from Link's dream at the beginning of the game has risen from the stone at the bottom of the chasm. And it's very threatening. This game's monster designs are weird sometimes. I knock it down, spend way too long figuring out how to damage it because it isn't telegraphed at all, and seal it back into the stone. But the old one explains that this has only bought us some extra time, and the imprisoned will break free again soon unless I hurry. Which I'm sure probably means I'm gonna have to fight this thing like 3 times. With the imprisoned resealed, the old one tells me where to go next. I need to locate the 3 sacred flames and use them to enhance the goddess sword and open another gate of time. But to find them, I need to find someone who can tell me the lyrics to the Ballad of the Goddess, which is the song Zelda was singing back at the start. Meanwhile, Groose has started to come to terms with the fact that Link is the hero, and that he can't do anything to help Zelda on his own. He walks off as the old one tells him he'll eventually have his own role to play in this. I figured since Gepora is Zelda's father, he might know something about the ballad, so I head straight to the academy to talk to him. He tells me the lyrics and it turns out I need to go find 2 whirling sails. I take a look around Skyloft and notice a couple windmills with pinwheels on them, so I use the Gust Bellows to spin the first one, but when I find the second windmill it turns out its pinwheel is missing. I wonder where we've seen a similar looking pinwheel recently. This guy tells me the pinwheel fell below the clouds, so I need to go talk to Gondo, that's the scrap shop guy, so I can borrow his robot to bring the thing up from the surface. He says he needs an ancient flower, which thankfully I already had, and Scrapper is back in working condition. Scrapper initially refuses to help, but then changes his tune after instantly falling in love with Fi. I get the thing and do the thing, and now I can go into the thing. The Thunderhead, which is this big cloud ball in the middle of the sky. On the inside, it's perpetually raining and filled with these flying monsters called Skytails. One puzzle later, I enter the tower on the main island. A goddess statue appears, Fi starts spinning again, and I obtain a new song, Furore's Courage. And with that, I head to the academy for a quick rest before I return to Farron Woods. I'm getting the weirdest feeling of deja vu right now. Back in Farron Woods, Fi leads me to where I need to play the song, and I start the first of the 3 trials I need to power up the goddess sword. So the way this works is I need to collect all the tears of light to dispel the twilight. Oops, wrong game. I need to collect the sacred tears while avoiding the guardians. No, not those guardians. I don't have access to my sword, so I'm entirely defenseless while inside the Silent Realm. If I get caught by a guardian, I have to start over from the beginning. Sorry for zoning out there, I just suddenly got this feeling of intense, repressed dread. Like there's something I kept locked away for 5 years? Well, whatever, I'm sure it's nothing. I clear the trial without much trouble, and my reward is the Water Dragon Scale, which grants me an ancient lost magic known as swimming. I dive into the nearby water and swim inside a hole in the tree, leading upwards back to the outside, where Yerbal, the Kiwi hermit, directs me to Lake Floria, which is blocked by a set of doors that can only be opened by solving its impossible puzzle. I navigate through some underwater tunnels, learn how to spin really fast, and finally meet the water dragon, Farron. She was recently wounded by Girahim, so the only way she'll reveal the location of the sacred flame is if I bring her some sacred water, which I can only get by backtracking to the Skyview Temple, on the opposite side of the region. And the spring is now guarded by 3 Stalfos. The water dragon, now healed, clears the path to the next dungeon, the ancient Cistern. This is basically this game's water temple, and considering the series' track record with water dungeons, let's just say my expectations were low. But luckily, this one didn't require nearly as much backtracking. There was even a point where I solved this puzzle lock on the first try by just swinging in a random order. A short way into the dungeon, I fight a stallmaster and obtain my next item. Seeing as we're this far into the game, I figured it could only be like the hookshot or maybe the bow. So let's review. My items so far have been a slingshot, the shovel claw from Sonic Adventure, a big leaf blower, and a weird stretchy whip, none of which do any damage. I found this a little confusing at first, but I can actually kind of understand why. The dungeon items seem to be more for solving puzzles, while the combat mainly focuses on aiming with the motion controls. It's a direction no game in the series has taken before or after. But enough about this game's strange item choices, now on to the second half of the Cistern, where I suddenly get sucked into the river Styx. Guess it's a good thing I didn't get the bow in this dungeon, right? I fight off a horde of zombified bokoblins and ascend to the heavens to get the boss key and enter the last door. And what lay behind was the ancient automaton, Kalaktos, who also happens to be one of the most well-designed fights in this entire game. You have to dodge projectiles, watch your surroundings. It actually has a lot in common with the Iron Knuckle fights from Ocarina of Time. It even takes a page from Wind Waker and has you pick up his own sword to attack. All in all, pretty fun fight, and it now sits within my favorite Zelda bosses of all time. And so, after all that work, I finally have the first sacred flame, granting the goddess sword more power and range. I immediately head back to the Thunderhead to get the next song, pointing me back to Lanayru. I quickly track down the location of the next trial, and oh no, it's all coming back to me. This is why I stopped playing this game all those years ago. Let me explain. So as I mentioned before, in these trials you have to find all the sacred tears without getting caught by the guardians. Something I didn't mention before is that there are also these ghost things called Watchers who will instantly wake up the guardians when they catch you in their light. They weren't much of a threat back in Faerun, which is why I didn't mention them, but for some reason Lanayru has a whole swarm of them all in one spot. So the last time I got to this point in the game, I had collected all the tears except the one behind these watchers. This angered me so much that I just stopped playing, intending to save it for later. Well, I guess I never said how much later because I'm back now and I'm here for revenge. Let's go. And thus, I had finally accomplished what my younger self couldn't. It was a tough journey, but I'm glad I could finally put this lifelong trauma to rest. I'm Evan, and thank you for joining me. Subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time. Oh wait, there's like a whole game left.